When I first started raising chickens, I fed my birds certified organic feed. After a couple of years, the costs started getting higher and higher. So about 5 years ago, we found a farmer that lives a couple hours away from here, and he grows and mills his own non-GMO feed. So it was about half the cost of the certified organic, and we made the switch to that. We were paying $11 for a 50-pound bag of the 18% all flock that worked really well for the chickens and the ducks. Well, with the input costs increasing the last 2 years, he's had to raise prices more and more. So last year, the $11 bag went up to $18.50. So at that point, we decided to start mixing our own feed. So we started buying whole grains. We started mixing 3 parts of whole wheat with 1 part of whole field peas. And then we would add a little bit of the fur trail fish meal to that. You can find fur trail dealers online. If you look at their website, there's dealers. You can search by zip code to find that. So the fish meal gets the protein up. We found that if we increased the field peas to try to get the protein up, then the chickens just wouldn't eat them. They'll only eat about 25% of the field peas in their mix. So we switched to that about a year ago, but they started eating more feed with the whole grains, even though they were soaked. And grinding them took a lot of time and wasn't really very practical with the equipment we have. So we've been experimenting over the last year and seeing what we could do to cut our costs and cut the feed consumption. And today I'm going to show you what we've come up with in our system now. We are now getting the same amount of eggs for about 1/3 of the cost compared to the $18.50 feed that we were buying. So quite a bit less than the certified organic. So I'm going to switch this camera around here and show you the feed that they're getting. So this is the feed that we mix up. Like I said, it's 3 parts wheat to 1 part of field peas. Sometimes we do substitute a little bit of the barley for wheat, but the chickens don't really like barley as much, and we've noticed a big drop on production if we put very much barley in there. And then we add a handful of fish meal to this, and we soak it overnight. So in the evening, I give them this feed that has been soaked for about 24 hours, and then I mix up another batch and just pour water over it to soak it. It about doubles overnight. So we pour this feed on the compost that's out here in the chicken coop. This is our main chicken coop, which we really haven't spent much money on. It's really rigged with zip ties and bungee cords everywhere, but it's really effective. So we have 3 different paddocks out here that we rotate the chickens between so that they get fresh greens. Some of this is just grass and alfalfa that comes back as soon as we take the chickens off of it. And then we also throw in some of their feed mix, so the wheat, barley, and field peas. And then we throw different things in here like kale, sometimes corn. We've been trying to get some corn going for the summertime. And there's some sunflowers over there. Just different things so they get their greens and they get a variety of nutrients. And every couple weeks we rotate them to a new paddock. This one was just planted last week, so it's starting to come up. And I don't till it in between planting because some of the plants are perennials that keep coming back. So I just rake in the seed as well as I can. There's a butterfly. I rake in the seed as well as I can. Sometimes I'll put some hay over the top of it, and then I water it every day till it starts coming up. This year we've gotten a lot of rain, so I really haven't had to water much. This pen is a mix of chickens and ducks. So we have our duck pond out here. The chickens are mostly inside because it's hot today. With mixing the chickens and ducks, we can save on housing because the ducks sleep on the floor and the chickens sleep on the roofs. So we can get quite a few more birds into the same space. But the disadvantage is that our chickens, their tails all get chewed on by the ducks. At first we thought we had a parasite problem when that started happening, and then we realized when we would take the same chickens that had frayed tails, when we'd take them out of the pen with the ducks, then their tails would get better. So these are our compost piles out here. We put chicken wire around them to kind of keep them contained, and we rotate between them. And there's another one back here in the corner. This is the one that we've just finished building. We actually put their feed on top of this, so the greens that are coming up is leftover wheat and field peas that they didn't eat. And then they get to kind of recycle it, and they'll eat it as fodder. They nibble the greens. I water this about once a week to keep it composting. So this also generates compost for our garden. This pile is a mix of leaves. I think there's some goat and horse manure in there, and then just kitchen scraps, a Christmas tree, cardboard, pretty much anything that can be composted, garden weeds. We just don't throw anything that's poisonous out here. This saves me some trouble with the kitchen scraps. Beforehand, I was separating into foods that the chickens would eat, and then foods that the chickens wouldn't eat to put on a regular compost pile. So like, for example, the onions and orange peels and things like that they don't really care for, I would just put up straight on the compost pile. And I had to have 2 separate compost buckets on the counter. Now I just have one, and it all comes out here, so anything they don't eat gets composted. I use a pitchfork once in a while to turn this a little bit, which encourages them to dig, and it brings up worms to the surface. I think that's why they are laying better on less feed. When we first started soaking the feed, this pen was getting 4 scoops. They're about a 2-pound scoop, so about 8 pounds of the whole grains soaked every day. When we started doing the compost system, they went down to 2 scoops, so half the amount every day, and they were laying the same. And then when we got these pens going in the spring, these rotating pastures, they went down to 1.5 scoops, so less than half. That's 3 pounds compared to the 8 that they were going through last fall. And this one's been going for about a week and a half. It's got some good growth coming on. So they'll be able to go in this one probably in another week and a half or so. So that is our system. We've been really happy with this so far, considering we're going through less than half the feed, and then we already cut out quite a bit of the cost when we switched from the pellets to the whole grains. So altogether, it's about 1/3 of the cost for about the same production. And we don't get really crazy production out of this pen, but we never did with the non-GMO feed. We did get better production on the organic feed, but it's probably 6 times the cost of what we're doing now, so it's not really worth it for a little bit better production. It makes more sense for us to just keep a few more birds, especially since we can hatch our own. We have an incubator, and we let mama hens go broody every year. And we buy a few new ones every year too. The chickens are really happy with this. Beforehand, they were just in dirt and mud. It was kind of gross. But now, being on the fresh pasture, they seem a lot happier and healthier. They can peck around, eat fresh grass, and the egg yolks are a lot yellower as well. They were getting omega-3s in their feed mix before, but having access to fresh greens all the time has made even more of a difference. So that is our chicken system.